In this video, I will walk you through the story of Chrono Trigger up until your confrontation with Magus and explain every boss fight along the way. Let's go! The game starts in the Kingdom of Guardia in 1000 AD and your mother wakes you up early because it's the opening day of the Millennial Fair, an event celebrating the founding of the kingdom 1000 years ago. Excited for the upcoming event, you bounce up, collect your allowance and head for the fair. After playing games, chugging soda, having a good time and running into a girl named Mal, you witness the showcase of Luca's latest invention where something goes wrong. The machine malfunctions, Mal disappears in a time gate, and being the aspiring hero that you are, you heroically follow to rescue her, which brings you 400 years into the past. Here you learn that a wizard named Magus is at war with the kingdom, approaching with an army of mystiques from the south. In the castle, Luca catches up and you discover Mal's true identity as a descendant of the royal family, but because the queen has been kidnapped and Mal is mistakenly recognized as her missing grand-grand-grand-grand-grandmother, nobody goes for her rescue. Thus, Mal and her lineage is erased from existence. So you go into the nearby cathedral to find the queen, save Mal from being time erased, but most importantly, getting your hands on that juicy Naga Bromide. You are also joined by Fork, the noble knight, and uncover more about the cult of Magus and their ambitions to overtake the kingdom. Thus, your first boss fight against Yakra, one of Magus's fiends, begins. Now there isn't too much going on in this fight, but it introduces you to two special aspects of the combat system: enemy positions and counterattacks. The boss slowly moves around and every time he is attacked from outside of his melee range, he retaliates by bouncing through the room, damaging everything in his path. So the best strategy is to wait until the boss is in melee range and then attacking him, preferably with an X-Strike from Chrono and Fork. Or you can just ignore this mechanic and go ham on him. It's the first boss after all and he is not going to kick your ass. After saving the queen and consequently Mal, you can finally return to your own timeline by manually opening the time portal with Luca's gate key, but surprise! You are immediately arrested for abducting the princess, put on trial and no matter how innocent you are, sentenced to death and thrown into prison. KO! Now there are two ways to get out of your cell, either by annoying the guards or by patiently waiting for your final day to come. I always wait it out because that way I can watch this very tragic and heart-wrenching moment when you are dragged to the scaffold. So Luca can make a last-minute rescue. The last obstacle between you and your freedom is the mighty dragon tank, but thankfully you found the operator's notes earlier describing its weakness. So the tank consists of three parts: head, wheels and body. The head is immune to light and fire magic and heals the tank, whereas the wheels perform a charge attack and the body has a missile launcher and a laser cannon. So the best way to defeat the tank is by focusing on its head with Chrono's melee attacks and putting Luca on heal duty using tonics. Once the head is destroyed, you can take out the other parts with your Cyclone or Firewall attack. After the fight and walking over your vexing prosecutor, you are chased outside the castle, and to finally escape, you desperately jump into another time gate and end up in an apocalyptic future. You realize that everything went to shit here and people are living in decrepit domes while a vicious storm is raging outside and the whole world has fallen to ruin. You will soon learn what happened, but first you need to find some food for the starving inhabitants. The food storage in Aris Dome, however, is guarded by the Guardian. This boss consists of a main body and 2 surrounding bits. The bits counter with nasty combo attacks every time you damage the body, so the number 1 rule is to always destroy them first. They only have 200 hit points and therefore go down quickly, then you can start working on the body itself. A countdown will also start, and once it reaches 0, the Guardian repairs the destroyed bits, so make sure to take them out again. Unfortunately, the food in the storage is already rotten, but at least you can recover a small sapling to give the remaining inhabitants new hope by cultivating their own food. You also learn that a monster named Lavos emerged in 1999, destroying the whole surface and bringing civilization to its knees. So you make it your official quest to change the past and stop Lavos from devastating the planet, but first you have to find a way back to your own timeline. Now this is the first instance where you can visit a small side area by entering the sewer access. Step careful in the sewers though, as stumbling over the scattered garbage and making any noise, even by using the fake safe spot, draws out the nearby water monsters. After navigating through the area, you can fight the owner of this place, Sir Krawlie. He has one troublesome ability which reduces the target's hit points down to 1, but other than that, he has not much to show for it. Just use Mal's heal tags to stay alive. The bolt sword that you get after the fight and the additional experience is of course welcome. After racing against a guy named Johnny to get past lab 32, you go to Protodome to find another time gate and get the hell out of here. But the power inside the dome is out, and instead you find a robot named Robo, and at this point you start to realize that the developers spent none of their creativity on naming the characters. To restore the power, you go deep inside the nearby factory and encounter some of Robo's old friends, who are not very delighted to see him collaborating with filthy humans. So they beat him up good and dispose him in a trash bin. And although Robo didn't want you to intervene, you cannot hold back and fight the R-Series afterwards to rescue your new friend. Now, because you face 6 enemies at once, you might think that focusing 1 or 2 down is a good idea to reduce the incoming damage, but once 2 robots are destroyed, the remaining ones start countering each attack by juggling one party member and slamming him into the other. So actually, the best strategy is to kill as many of them at the same time, and because they are positioned in 2 camps, using Chrono's Cyclone attack once on each group will just do enough damage so the next round of Cyclones can take them out at the same time. Luca then repairs Robo in an exhausting overnight session, and you can finally leave this dystopian future, bringing you not back to 1000 AD however, and instead to the end of time. Here you can fight Spekkio, Master of War, who will assume more powerful forms depending on your own strength. If you reach this place below level 10, you can even fight his secret frog form. The fights against him are purely based on magic, so high magic defense and strong magic tags are mandatory to defeat him. Later on, status immunity is also important, and equipment that absorbs or negates elemental damage make the fights against him much easier. You also find an old guy named Gaspar who knows a lot about the past, present and future and kind of acts as your guide, giving directions where to go next. You exit the end of time through another time portal to get back to your own age. But instead of returning to the kingdom of Guardia, you emerge from a closet in Medina village, which lies on another continent and is inhabited by the descendants of the mystics that were led by mages 400 years ago. As a consequence of the war back then, these creatures are also not really fond of humans, leading to one or two brawls in the nearby establishments. You also learn that apparently Magus was the one who created the almighty Lavos, and that when Lavos finally awakens, humanity is doomed. So your next goal seems to be stopping Magus in the past before he can summon the big spiky fire turtle. After visiting the weaponsmith Melchior, which by the way is the same guy that wanted to buy Mal's pendant on the Millennial Fair, you go through the nearby water cave where you have to fight your next boss battle against Heckran, which, like the other mystics, is susceptible to magic. And who would have guessed that if a boss clenches himself up and says, "Go ahead, try an attack," you really shouldn't oblige. Just heal up for a moment and wait for the brief counter-attack pause before you continue pounding the boss again. Once you get to the end of the cave, you are spit out by a whirlwind, which in my head makes no sense, and finally arrive in your hometown. So after that crazy trip, you sure as hell need another round of drinking before you go back to 600 AD and get the latest news about Magus and his approaching army of mystiques. And apparently, things are really not looking good. The king has been injured, the knights defending Xenon Bridge are starving, and there are no more juicy bromides to collect. Some people say that mages can only be defeated by the legendary Masamune, and the only one who can wield this sword is a prophesized hero. Fortunately, someone wearing the hero medallion, which is kind of like the identity card of the hero I guess, has already been spotted. So everything will be fine, right? Well, anyway, after a quick talk with the king, you are sent with some beef jerky to help the starving knights at Xenon Bridge. Here you fight the troops of General Ozzie, who also summons your next boss encounter, Zombor. Most notable about that thing is that his top and bottom parts are immune to different kinds of magic. While the head absorbs fire and lightning, the legs absorb water and shadow, so use your magic accordingly. Chrono, however, can use his Cyclone to damage both parts simultaneously, but don't use any pumped up elemental version. Also keep your hit points over 100 at any point to survive the monster's nasty doom laser. Now you can decide to either take the head or the legs out first, and I would personally go for the legs. The thing is, when you take his head out, the remaining legs can still perform a doom attack where he slowly approaches and instantly kills one party member, healing him for the same amount of damage. But this ability is kind of buggy and sometimes he just walks back and forth, not doing anything. So if that happens, you can simply grind him down, but I wouldn't take any chances and kill the legs first. The remaining head then repeatedly only munches on one party member, which is much easier to handle. After defeating Zombor, you reach the southern continent and gather more information about the hero, who apparently grew up in a nearby town. You also meet your old friend Fork in the Cursed Woods, and then you follow the trail of the hero to the Denadoro Mountains. It quickly turns out, however, that the boy wearing the medallion is no real hero after all, so you climb the mountain yourself to claim the sword. But before you can lay your hands on it, you must defeat its guardians, Masa and Mune. So when you fight both of them, you should always target Mune on the left side because Masa counters each attack with a powerful X-Strike. Alternatively, you can use Lucas' Hypno Wave to immobilize one of the brothers and then simply attack the other. But the real challenge begins when both merge and become Masamune. The boss now does more damage and has higher hit points, and at some point he starts storing tornado energy. During this time, he counters all attacks and unleashes a powerful strike at the end, causing high damage to everyone. The name of this attack? Pain. But the good news is that you can avoid this attack completely and you get the according information by an old guy in the Reno. So yeah, simply use Chrono Slash technique when the boss starts to store energy, cancelling the whole thing and thus making the fight a lot easier. After overcoming this challenge, you get the broken blade of Masamune and are spit out by the mountains. You get the hero's medal from Tata afterwards, who is now back home and admits that a fork dropped it in the nearby bar. Presenting the medal to Fork then earns you the hilt of Masamune, but Fork is still sulking over his past and won't join you. Since the name Melchior is engraved onto the weapon's hilt, you visit him in Medina and he tells you to get a Dreamstone from 65 million years ago so that he can repair the damn thing. So off you go. After arriving in the prehistoric age, you immediately fall into a nest of reptiles, and just as your situation looks futile, a warrior woman appears and starts beating the living crap out of the lizards. The warrior's name is Ayla, and she is the boss of the nearby Ayoka tribe. She also has the Dreamstone that you are looking for and hands it over after a wild night of prehistoric partying and eating unhealthy amounts of pork soup. But while you were out cold afterwards, your gate key got stolen and you have to get it back. So with Ayla in tow, you follow the thief and end up in the nearby reptile cave. After digging your way down into the cave, you meet Azala, chief of the reptiles, who has your stolen key, and in order to get it back, you have to face one of her little pets. The whipped Triceratops Nizbel. Seriously, looks like he's showing off his massive gains all the time. Now, similar to the other dinosaurs that you had to fight so far, you first have to break his defense with lightning and then attack him. However, the lusty lizard eventually retaliates with a strong lightning discharge and restores his defense fully in the process. So before you weaken him with lightning again, heal up first and then repeat the cycle until he is defeated and you retrieve your stolen key. You then temporarily bid farewell to Ayla and make your way to Medina, where Melchior repairs the Masamune. You return to the Cursed Woods, and Fork, presented with the legendary sword, reminds himself that he wants revenge on Magus because he killed his friend Cyrus 10 years ago and transformed him into his current form. And so he finally joins the party. He also cannot resist showing off his shiny new weapon as the real prophesized hero and thinks that he is super cool now. Anyway, the group passes through the magic cave and reaches Magus' castle. Now, in terms of party composition, I would take Robo in addition to the mandatory Chrono and Fork for 3 reasons. 1. If Robo learns Tackle, you will also learn Triple Weight, a powerful single target triple tag that makes the upcoming boss fights much easier. 2. If you visit Spekkio once you have Frog in your party, he will learn to use water magic and soon after also learn a multi-target heal ability. In addition to Robo's Cure Beam, you then have enough healing power for what's to come. And 3. Having Robo in addition to Chrono and Fork covers 3 elements: lightning, water and shadow, and you will see why that's important once you fight mages. After exploring the spooky castle on both sides, Ozzie appears to greet you at the entrance area and starts throwing his minions at you. You will now also encounter the bosses Slash and Flea at the end of the left and right side and can decide which one you take out first. I would immediately go for Slash on the left side because you get a useful weapon for Chrono after beating him. The fight against Slash, or how Frog addresses him, Sir Slush, is divided into two parts before and after he picks up his sword. The most important thing here is consistent healing, so having Frog with his multi-target heal spell and Zombor with his strong single-target heal makes this fight much easier to handle. Just keep your party alive and attack him with your strongest tags available. Equipping someone with the Rage Band is also useful, as Sir Slush likes to attack fast and hit multiple targets at once, resulting in occasional counterattacks from your side. And don't forget to pick up his sword after the fight. At the end of the right path, you first fight against a fake Flea that dies after one hit, but it drains the mana of the one doing the death blow. This is more of a nuisance than a real problem, and you just have to use an ether afterwards. You can also avoid the MP Buster if you let the clone attack the character with a Rage Band and killing it with a counter attack, because the MP Buster is also a counter attack and the game doesn't allow for a counter to a counter. Just so you know. The wheel fight afterwards is also not really that hard if you have enough healing power. Flea is weak to physical attacks, so using your triple weight makes quick work of him. And yes, Flea is a man, as he likes to point out just before the fight begins. Also make sure to have some items to remove status ailments, because he constantly tries to poison, confuse, blind or put you to sleep. After defeating Slash and Flea, you have to chase Ozzie, who prepared a lot of traps to fall into, and upon reaching him, he encases himself in ice. Attacking him directly results in a counterspell and does no damage to him, so instead target the chains on both sides. Ozzie will then fall into his own trap and the way to Magus is free. The fight against Magus himself is the toughest one so far. He has over 6000 hit points and a magic barrier which only allows for one type of magic to hurt him, and he changes the attunement of this barrier each time he takes damage. He will also follow up each elemental change with a strong magic attack of the same type that he is now susceptible to. So for example, if the barrier change causes him to attack with a lightning spell, he is also susceptible to lightning, and if he uses a dark bomb, he is then susceptible to dark magic. Now you cannot have all 4 elements covered, so when the barrier is of an element that you cannot use, simply strike him with a physical attack to force another change, but physical attacks will not do a lot of damage. Oh, and by the way, he absorbs the other elements which the barrier is currently not weak against. The Masamune is an exception though, as hitting him with a legendary sword does not force a barrier change and will also decrease his magic defense, so make use of the sword whenever you can. Once Magus received enough damage, he will continuously prepare and use his signature spell, Dark Matter, a powerful attack doing high magic damage to everyone. But his barrier is now also down and you can attack him with everything you have. Just make sure you are fully healed before he unleashes this devastating attack. After defeating Magus, he tells you that he didn't create Lavos and that it already existed inside the planet the whole time, feeding on its energy and growing ever so stronger. He only wanted to summon it for whatever reason. Your intervention, however, ruined Magus' plans and you are all sucked in by a massive gravity well. This brings you back to 65 million years ago, where Ayla finds you in the Mystic Mountains and carries you back to her village. And this is a good spot to end the first episode. Next time we will settle our issues with the reptiles, explore a magic kingdom and have our first direct confrontation with Lavos. which, spoiler alert, does not end well for us, unless you watch my guide on how to defeat Lavos in the Ocean Palace. If you enjoy this kind of content, let me know by leaving a like and subscribe to my channel for more future walkthroughs and additional guides for retro video games. And always remember that this is Tobi Continued. Thanks for watching.